Good evening and welcome to Hitbullseye. I am Sheetal and the topic that I will be discussing in today's live will be Misfit Question, or how to find out the odd one out. So in the last live I discussed about sentence rearrangement. You can say this is a part of that only, but the difference is these are much more easier than the sentence rearrangement question. To be particularly talking about the CAT exam gives you no choice for the misfit questions as well as the SR question, which makes them alluring or attractive choices. They're very enticing. We all want to do such questions which will not, let us get the negative marking, but we need to understand sentence rearrangement can be time consuming. There are 5 to 6 sentences, you have to arrange them in a particular order. But misfit question, I think, is one such type you should all be going for, be it any MBA entrance exam. So let us understand the misfit question and do some of the practice questions related to it. So in this, you just have to find out that one sentence from the given sentences, be it 5, be it 6, you have to find out one sentence that doesn't gel well with the rest of the sentences. So the difficulty level is relatively high in the CAT and the ZAT exam for these questions. The examiner, you can say, is not fool enough that he would give you such choices in which the subject area of the odd sentence is completely different. So they will be using similar kind of keywords. The subject area might also be equally same. It's just that it will talk about some different aspect. For example, let's say all the sentences are talking about Rabindranath Tagore's contribution towards literature, and one of the sentences talking about Rabindranath Tagore's contribution towards the Indian politics. So the sentence with the politics will be the odd one out because it is talking about a different aspect, though about the same subject, but the aspect is different now. So that will be the odd one out. In the CAT exam, you will most probably get these type of questions. You will get to know it from today's live, because with some practice question, I will be showing you actual paper questions also, actual CAT question from previous year. So without any further ado, let's get into the video, and you may all feel free to drop in your answers. So again, technique is same. The technique we applied for the sentence rearrangement question. A lot of student I have seen, they would first arrange the sentences into a coherent paragraph and then see which line doesn't fit over there, and that would be the misfit sentence. So you can also follow this. First of all, try to identify the sentence which introduces you to the subject. Try to guess the theme of all the sentences. Guessing the subject of all the sentences and theme is very important. Then look for the opening or the introductory sentence of that passage, which will again give you the subject. Make some pairs that cannot, that will definitely go along, that cannot be there in isolation. So pair will also help you to identify which sentence is a part of this paragraph and which is not. Anticipate the order on your own. So this is for the SR, and if you have to apply it to misfit, you can do that also. After anticipating the order, see which sentence doesn't fit there in any position or anywhere at any spot. So this is the first question in front of you. Quickly go through the question and let me know the answer. Which sentence do you think doesn't go with the rest of the sentences? Let us see who's going to answer this one. So if I have to read it for you, it is not clear why Brooks thinks readers should take counseling on depth and otherworldly merits from someone who, as he puts it himself, has a natural disposition towards shallowness and has achieved worldly success working as a narcissist blowhard. So one thing is clear, he is talking about the readers, and why should the readers or should not take counsel from the other people whom they think are very wise people. So he's saying that you need not seek knowledge, or you can say guidance, from someone else. So what should you rather do? Let's understand it. He instructed that the highest rung on the ladder of understanding could be reached by the cultivated self, not grasped through crowdsourcing speculations. So one thing is clear. What is he saying here? He is saying that rather than referring to too many sources or crowdsourcing and speculating over all the different ideas, you should be looking within yourself to find out the answer, to find out the information, to find out the wisdom, to attain the wisdom. So in a spring 2014 New York Times editorial, he maintained that the stairway to wisdom did not sneak through big data. Big data means all the information available about something. The ladder is not through the big data, but rather through the precious singularity of the soul. Again, he is talking about the singularity of soul. Here also he was saying that you should look within yourself, cultivated self. Look at these. These are the hint keywords. David Brooks is ever on the move, stepping, climbing and ambling towards wisdom. So now there are two names here. First one is introducing you to the name, that is David Brooks. A is only using the surname of this person, which means this makes it the opening sentence of the passage, the D. Starting with this idea that David Brooks was always looking into or ambling about or speculating about what actually wisdom is. How do people can attain wisdom? Then he goes on to explain or give his perception, which is presented in the B and C. Look at the type of word he's been using. Yes, he has talked about looking into your own soul, but he hasn't used very negative words or words with negative connotation for the people, those who look or seek wisdom from other people. But look at this one, such strong words. He is saying that the people you want to ask things from, they have shallowness and they are narcissistic. So this clearly goes a little different from the kind of language he's been using in B, C and D. So this makes A the right answer here, the odd one out. So A has a different kind of language. He's talking about a person having natural disposition towards shallowness and narcissistic blowhard. He has not said that people actually are not wise. He's simply saying that for you, whatever best is, you can find it out within yourself, not by asking to someone else. Doesn't mean that other people are shallow. So it's a very negative sentence, I would say. It's an extreme one. Unless until we have proof enough, we cannot go with that one. Probably, we do not know. See, this is an excerpt from somewhere. Probably this can be a part of it, but there should be a lot of information before that to show the transition to reach to this point. But in these 3 points, we don't see him using very negative words for people, the other people from whom you want to seek advice. So why to use it now? Right? So A cannot be the part of this paragraph. It should be the odd one out. I hope you got some idea about it. Second one is relatively easier one. Let us see if you'll be able to find out the right odd one out here. Let us see who's going to answer this one. Waiting for your response. Drop in your answers in the chat box, everyone. So, let me read it for you. The difference rippled through later human evolution, affecting everything from family ties to the origin of speech. Now, what is this passage talking about? It's talking about human evolution. So, as ape-like feet evolved to support and propel an upright body, they could no longer grasp objects with a thumb-like big toe, as the feet of chimps and other apes can. So when our ancestors of the Homo sapiens, the humans, when they started to evolve, eventually they lost that ability to grasp things using their big toe. Eventually they started losing that. Just the way chimps have it and the other apes have it, we no more had that ability while we were evolving. This is what the second sentence saying, again about the human evolution. So can you see? The subject is similar in the first two sentences. She may have had to depend on her mate. Now, this makes us wonder, who is she? Who are we talking about? She may have had to depend on her mate and the larger group, which may have strengthened social bonds and could help explain why humans are largely monogamous, unlike most of the apes. Monogamous, having only one spouse, having only one marriage, you can say. So why is that? So we have evolved from the apes family, and we are so much towards the monogamous marriages, whereas marriage or this institution is no such as such no concept for the animals and for the other apes. So one reason can be, let's read the last one and then I'll tell you. For hominin mothers, look at this. So this she was used for the mothers. For hominin mothers and infant, the consequences were momentous. While chimps babies cling to their mother's hair with muscular hands and grasping toes, a baby hominin probably had to be carried. So what is this sentence saying? Limiting the mother's ability to provide for herself. The same thing. The chimp's babies can easily cling on to their mother with their muscular hand and strong toes. But the ape's baby cannot do this any longer because he doesn't have these strong muscles. He cannot cling on to the hair, and the mother eventually, through the evolution, she started carrying the baby on her own, limiting herself basically. So this is also talking about the evolution. So for this mothers, we have used this pronoun saying that this is the reason because it kind of made her handicapped, or it decreased her abilities to do the other thing. She had to rely on the other members of the group. After this, relying on the other member, probably this is the reason we Homo sapiens, we became so much social. We started living in groups. We had this concept of family, relying on each other, having monogamous marriages and all that. So all the sentences are talking about evolution. Now give me the answer. Which one should be the odd one out? No, Herman, the C you are saying should, the one you say should be the odd one out is absolutely correct. Actually a part of this. This mother aspect has been further explained in C. So you can say the sequence is B, D and C. So which one should be the odd one? It should again be A. And I have already marked the hint phrase here, the key phrase here, which is origin of speech. Aren't we talking about the physical ability? Aren't we talking about the ape-like body, the ape's body getting upright and not being able to do certain things which the other ape families can do? So we are here talking about the physical aspects, changes in the physical aspect. Why is this point talking about the origin of the speech and the family ties? So family ties, I understand. We can deduce it from this point, monogamous marriage and relying on each other. But what about this origin of speech? When the whole passage, any other option, it's not talking about the origin of the speech, we will not go with this choice. So A is the odd one out here. I hope this one is clear. Herman, try your luck in this one now. With the emergence of the novel in the early modern era, the risks posed by reading to the state of mind of the reader became a regular source of apprehension. Apprehension is a state of being worried or being anxious of the future. So what made people anxious of the future? That reading something can, you can say, disrupt with your thought process. It can mess up your mind and all that. Yes, that is true. So you know how orthodox the society was. So it is talking about emergence of the novel. So probably it's early 18th century when the novels arrived. Before that, we haven't always had novels. So yes, we had plays and dramas, Shakespearean plays and all that in the Elizabethan era. But novel, why the name novel? Novel means something new. So this novel's concept came much later when people wanted something short to study, right? To have pleasure from it. So emergence of novel, when it came in the early modern era, the risk posed by reading to the state of mind of the reader became a regular source of apprehension. People used to get anxious thinking of what kind of effects can reading have on people's mind. So that is what the subject area is. Let us read the more sentences. Critics of the novel claimed that its reader risked losing touch with reality and consequently became vulnerable to serious mental illness. Again, a negative thing. So one thing is clear, the tone of the passage is quite negative towards novel reading. So, or I won't say the author is actually being negative. He is simply talking about people who were apprehensive or people who were negative towards novel reading. This is reflecting the same idea. The tone is negative in this one also and in this one also. The English essayist Samuel Johnson asserted that the realism of fiction, in particular, its tendency to deal with the issues of everyday life, had insidious consequences, horrible consequences. Johnson said this. He was an essayist and he also said that effects of reading can be insidious. And the second point was talking about if a person is too much into fiction and imagination, he loses touch from reality. He lives in his own world. The triggering of dysfunctional imitative behavior constituted a particular risk to the virtue of a woman. Look at this. So now they are narrowing it down. First they were talking in general terms that it can have bad effects on everyone, and now they say it can actually have bad effect on the virtue of the women, which is like very offensive. Okay, which one should be the answer for this one? Come on, drop in your answers. Try to find out that one single thread which is, there in all the options, just not in one option. Try to find it out. Okay, Ritvik and Harman, I would say you've tried it really well. You can say that the earlier or the other sentences or the lines are not talking about women. Why is the D only talking about women? Always keep this thing in mind whenever you are doing sentence rearrangement question or misfit question. It's always from the broader perspective to the narrower perspective. For example, a passage about racial and national identity would first give you different factors that influence your identity. It can be your place of birth, place of death, your environment, your culture, your religion, your national identity, your racial identity. Then the author goes on to further explain only racial and national identity. So see, from the broader perspective, we are going towards narrower. So D is fine. It's also talking about effects of reading on the mind of the reader. So this is also talking about the same. It's just that it has narrowed down to women, which can eventually come. The odd one here should be which one? Come on, try your luck. So rather, it should be C. Why? Because look at this. The English essayist Samuel Johnson asserted that realism of fiction, really? Didn't we discuss in this point that actually we lose touch of reality if we read fiction? And Samuel Johnson is discussing realism of fiction. So when the whole passage is not talking about the realism of fiction, rather fiction being unrealistic, fiction making us lose our mind, how can we talk about realism of the fiction? So this is how they will try to trap you by giving you the same kind of idea, but look at the approach, no? It's different now in C1. So C is the odd one out here, right? Let us move on to one more question. Let's do it and then I'll show you some actual CAT questions. Quickly go through this one. Okay, Ritvik said B. No, Ritvik, for that one it was C. Let me quickly read this for you. The real power of these technical means lay not in the techniques and technologies themselves, but in the disposition of those who used them, in their unshakable confidence that there were in principle no mysteries, incalculable forces they could not calculate and control. Power of these technical means. Okay, this is a little vague. When we only read the first sentence, we are still not clear कि यहाँ पे कौन से technical means की बात हो रही है. So let's read it further. Such a technical rationality. Again technical rationality. किसकी technical rationality की बात है ये? Such a technical rationality had replaced the magical means pre-modern people had used to placate gods and spirits. Placate is to pacify. Hence that there were in principle no mysteries, incalculable forces they could not calculate and control. Reading the last one. Having conquered everything else, the calculating machines of modernity are now coming for our books. Okay, so they are talking about computers. They are talking about calculating machines. Max Weber suggested in 1917 that the world had been disenchanted. Enchanted is when you are very much in awe with something. You feel as if you are possessed with something. You are in some kind of a different zone. You feel enchanted, possessed, spirited, you can say. So Max Weber said that the world has been disenchanted now. There is no mysteries, no magic, no enchantment, because people now rely on calculations, computers, practicality and reality. He meant that modernity was best understood by the expansion of technical means that controlled all things through calculation. So now no more relying on the imagination or magic, or you can say metaphysics or enchantment. Now people rely more on technical means, things that can give you actual calculations. So all the sentences are talking about technical rationality, that how it has replaced people's belief. People used to believe in a lot of superstitious things, now they don't. This also talked about the same. The real power of these technical means lay not in the techniques or technologies themselves, but how people perceive these technologies to be so correct, so accurate. They have this desire that they don't want to be in any kind of uncertainty or mystery. They don't want to go for any incalculable forces. So which one should be the odd one out in this one? Come on, quickly drop in your answers. Yes, Harman and Ritwik? Waiting for your response. Try to understand which of the sentence is not talking about the same thing. Or probably the subject is same but the angle is different in that one sentence. Come on, try your luck. Alright, let us discuss this one. The odd sentence in this one is again C. Yes, okay, we agree that people are more rational now. They rely more on the technologies now. They believe in calculating things. They are not no more enchanted. They don't want to be in uncertainties and mysteries. But does that mean these calculating machines can replace our books now? They are coming for our books now. Isn't that very extreme and dramatic? He is simply talking about something which is practical. He's simply analyzing over the time how computers and our urge to calculate everything has taken over the enchanted world. Why would he say, having conquered everything else, the calculating machines of modernity are now coming for our books? Moreover, does it make sense? What does he mean by saying this? That the calculating machines can replace the books, right? So this, because it's very extreme, author is not talking about this extreme case in any of the other sentence. So this is a little dicey. We will chuck it out. So this is the odd one out here. Okay, actual cat question. Let's do it now. So this is from 2021 slot 2. I hope the screen is visible to you. I'll quickly read the sentences for you. It has taken on a warm fuzzy glow in the advertising world where its potential is being widely discussed, and it is being claimed as the undeniable wave of the future. Why are we again and again using this it? So this becomes very, irritating in these sentences that we do not know why are we using it. What is the noun of this pronoun? Let's identify. There is little enthusiasm for this, again this, in the scientific arena. For them, marketing is not a science, and only a handful of studies have been published in the scientific journals. Okay, so they are talking about marketing. They are relating marketing to a kind of science. Let us see what kind of science. So they're talking about the marketing. the new growing field of neuromarketing. To be more precise, they are talking about neuromarketing. So neuroscience and marketing, they've drawn a relative kind of a study. Attempts to reveal the inner workings of the consumer behavior and is an extension of the study of how choices and decisions are made. So yes, neuromarketing can sometimes help you to predict what does the consumer want, or it gives you a peep into the consumer's psychology. Some see neuromarketing as an attempt, again guys, neuromarketing, the same subject. Some see neuromarketing as an attempt to make the art of advertising into a science, being used by marketing experts to back up their proposals with some form of real data. Again, a relation between science and marketing. And the last one, the marketing gurus have already started drawing on psychology in developing tests and theories, and advertising people have borrowed the idea of the focus group from social scientists. So this is a relatively easy one. It's from the actual CAT exam. Can you find out the misfit in this one? I'm gonna give you the screen for like 10 seconds and then I'll answer it. Yes, come on. Which one should be the odd one out? Try to look for the keywords. Yes, Ritvik, Harman, which one do you think should be the odd one out? So the answer for this one will be E. E is the odd one out. Why? Because it is relating what? Marketing to social science? No, we've been talking about the scientist, to be precise, neuroscience. Social science is something else. So that is the reason. Yes, they were also talking about marketing. Yes, they mentioned the marketing gurus also. Yes, they did talk about drawing on psychology also. It was fine up until here. But how did they say group from social scientists? We haven't discussed social scientists anywhere here. Neuroscience is different from social studies. So this is the odd one out. Let us see one more actual question, or question from the actual CAT paper. Yes, again this is from the same paper. So you can say second question. There are two misfit questions in CAT exam usually. So the care with which philosophers examine arguments for and against forms of biotechnology makes this an excellent primer on formulating and assessing moral arguments. Okay, so they are talking about biotechnology. Makes this an excellent primer on formulating and assessing the moral arguments. So, okay, we are talking about biotechnology. Why are we relating it to the moral arguments? Let us see. And to understand it, you need to understand all the sentences. Although most people find at least some forms of genetic engineering disquieting, it is not easy to articulate what is wrong with re-engineering of our nature. So do you get it now? There are these two set of people. One set of people who is always pro-science, they will say that what is wrong with re-engineering with our genes and our DNA? What's wrong in that? If we can develop, if we can, mix the biology and the technology to create something wonderful, what is wrong in that? And there is this another set of people who would say, you shouldn't be messing up what is natural, what is there in the raw form. So that is the reason the morals have come here. So what is wrong with re-engineering of our nature? But for some people it's disturbing. Breakthroughs in genetics present us with the promise that we will soon be able to prevent a host of debilitating diseases. So, and the predicament that our newfound genetic knowledge may enable us to enhance our genetic traits. So here are the justification. One, probably if we can genetically develop our offsprings, they will be prevented from certain kind of diseases. So what is wrong in that? Or we can enhance our genetic traits also. Again, justifying it. Justifying the biotechnology or re-engineering of our genes. To grapple with the ethics of enhancement, again the ethics of enhancement. Enhancement of what? Enhancement of the genes or the humans or the human race. To grapple with the ethics of enhancement, we need to confront questions that verge on theology. Theology is study of religion, God, religious beliefs and everything related to God. So, we need to confront questions that verge on theology, which is why modern philosophers and political theorists tend to shrink from them. So shrink is, they try to avoid it. People who ask questions from the point of view of theology and religion, scientists shrink from them. They don't want to answer them because one rely on beliefs, the other set of people, that is the scientists, they rely on everything that can be scientifically proven and calculated. So mostly they are atheist. That is the reason they shrink from it. One argument is that the drive for human perfection through genetics is objectionable as it represents a bit of mastery that fails to appreciate the gifts of human powers and achievements. So another negative point. There is argument and counter argument in the whole passage. So this point again says that aren't you happy with this gift that God has given you? Why do you have to re-engineer yourself? So this is the last question for today. Come on, quickly drop in your answers for this one. Which one or which sentence do you think should be the odd one out here? Now this I would rate more towards a difficult question. It's quite a tricky one. Disquieting is inducing feeling of anxiety. Yes. So you can say distrust or anxiety or apprehension is disquieting. Read all the sentences and quickly drop in your answer. Okay, I can see a response. Ritvik is saying option D. Very good, Ritvik. So you are very close, I would say. Good try, Ritvik. So the odd one out here, guys, should be A, and you were very close, Ritvik, because A is conceptually opposite to D. D points says one thing, which is the philosophers and the political theorists, they shrink from explaining the ethics of enhancement. So they avoid it. And what is A saying? The care with which philosophers examine. Do they examine it with care? No, they shrink from it. They don't want to explain it to anyone, to the theologists. So either they should be wrong or they should be wrong. But after reading the rest of the options, we get to know the passage is pro-enhancement, you can say, or the passage is more towards the philosophers and the political theorists and more towards justifying why is re-engineering fine. So almost all the points were talking about the same thing. What do the philosophers and the political theorists who favor genetic changes or re-engineerings of the genes, what all justification they give? So one thing is clear, it's more towards the philosophers. So we cannot say that the care with which philosophers examine arguments for and against forms of biotechnology makes this an excellent primer on formulating and assessing moral arguments. No, they were least bothered about the moral arguments. Anything that comes from theology, they shrink from it. So this is conceptually opposing point. D rather says to grapple with. Look at this. They have to grapple with it. They have to struggle with it. With the ethics of enhancement, we need to confront question that on the verge of theology, which is why modern philosopher and political theorists tend to shrink from it. They avoid it as much as possible. So I hope the misfit questions are clear. We've been getting the misfit question all these years. It's just that last year they gave you a different kind of question in place of the misfit question, which was place the given sentence in the right place of the paragraph. I will be covering it up in the next live. If you want to know more about it, stay tuned to the channel. I will be discussing this new question type with you and I will show you some actual questions also. If there are any suggestions or anything that you want to know, you may leave it in the comment box. Thank you and all the very best for your preparation.